Welcome back to the Smugsy Show. I'm Smugsy, your host. Every Wednesday we meet here to talk about important things and important people. This week it's faux wokeness, a battle, fought and won from Camp Betty. But first, a word from our sponsors, Smug Ciggies, sleek and elegant joint ciggies made with organic cannabis rolled in all-natural, locally sourced paper. Look for Smug Ciggies in the pretty indigo and marigold packs. Well, as fans of the show know, we have been stationed in Camp Betty since Russia invaded Ukraine, fighting for Volodymyr Zelensky and the people, and fighting for refugee housing at Camp Betty. And the enemy is a militant faction of dicks, major dicks. And it's coming to a head. There's a referendum question on the ballot from Camp Betty. Do you support refugee housing or do you support a mortgage-backed security? If you support refugee housing, you vote no. If you support a mortgage-backed security, you vote yes. I didn't make those rules. So the battle has been intense in Camp Betty. It almost killed the show. There's not a lot of sense of humor in Camp Betty. There's a lot of viciousness, backstabbing. It's pitted the Eastern Cottontails versus the New England Cottontails. It's pitted the supporters of Volodymyr Zelensky versus the supporters of Vladimir Putin. So the vote's coming up. I want to win, so I have a show with the mayor of Camp Betty. The show was a live show from the town square. Massively attended. Live streamed. All of Camp Betty was welcome. It was a great show. The crowd went crazy. We rallied them for a no vote in support of refugee housing because refugee housing is better for kids and families, less expensive, and it's what Volodymyr Zelensky needs and what he wants. And that's our job. I mean, the crowd is, no, no, no. I mean, you could feel the momentum of the no vote. I mean, we were crushing it. And the mayor and I felt really good about the show, about our performance. We had just a lot of rapport with the audience. And in basking in the glow of the great show, I come home and see on Facebook that ten minutes before the show had ended, Dan, one of the biggest dicks, one of the major dicks, one of the enemies, he had started a Facebook war, rallying Camp Betty to vote yes. And so I had to engage. I was tired, but I thought, well, this is it. So I jumped on Facebook, and we had a war of words, jousting. Some people could say vomiting. Everybody would say that I won the battle, is the bottom line. That's the takeaway here. Okay, and the argument for refugee housing has been the same from day one. I've said I don't want a mortgage-backed security because mortgage-backed securities are for corporations and for speculators and for Vladimir Putin. And I'm for Volodymyr Zelensky, and I want refugee housing because it's for kids and families, and that's what we need, and it's less expensive. Hundreds of words, hours of back and forth on Facebook. Not once did Dan say anything about hate speech. So we go to bed, get up the next day, go about our business, and about 24 hours later, I get a private message. And this is the faux wokeness, the incoming grenade of a false accusation of violating the woke code. Okay? Dan accuses me of committing hate speech in a private message. So that's hint number one, that it's faux wokeness because it was so long after we had engaged in a battle that he had obviously lost. And not once had he brought up hate speech. But he says to me, Smugsy girl, I watched the forum last night, the show, and lost track of how many times you referred to developers as a cabal, or a cabal of ultra-rich developers in similar terms. You have consistently referred to Nathan XYZ, who is Jewish, in this way, indicating he is rich, greedy, etc. You may not know this. I sincerely hope you don't. But cabal is an anti-Semitic term when used in that way, especially combined with these other references. There's enough emotion over the issue without venturing into this territory, so I hope I can convince you, stop saying what you're saying. Please read the attached reference article, and with it was a link to an article with a hashtag Translate Hate. I said, Dan, the developer is a corporation that does not have ethnicity, and your sanctimony is offensive. And I'm not doing it back and forth with you. He says, Smugsy, I sent this to you privately to both ask you to stop doing something that is hurtful and to help you understand. But I see you don't care how you come across on the issue, which is good to know. I said, why don't you stick to the issue and the facts? And I don't need a lecture from you publicly or private about what to say. If you don't like what I have to say, don't listen. And Dan says his final words. His final argument is, I would want to know if I inadvertently was saying something that others might consider hate speech. And to that I said, hate speech? Please. So, why did Dan wait so long to throw the grenade, the accusation of hate speech? Well, I would say that it's because he lost the argument on the merits and was publicly humiliated. But some might say, others might say, he inadvertently is a sexist pig. And reasonable people could disagree, but there's a lot of evidence of that if you think about it. Like, for instance, Dan doesn't think I know that referring to someone who's Jewish as rich and greedy is anti-Semitic. You don't think I know that, Dan? But the biggest thing is, Dan says he lost count of the times I've referred to developers as cabal and never did it once. And he could have watched the show, right, because it's available on demand. So isn't it sexist, Dan, to assume that you don't have to check the facts, that you can just blurt out these false accusations, that you can say that I said something that I didn't? So I went back and watched the show, and it was a great show, and the word cabal was used twice. Once in a sentence that said, the mortgage-backed security cabal and the developers and bankers. Okay, so developers were not part of the cabal, clearly. You can't be in addition to the cabal if you're the cabal. The second time the word cabal was said in the show, it was modified by the adjective lovingly. It said that the mortgage-backed security that I that I lovingly refer to as the mortgage-backed security cabal. So not once did I refer to XYZ developer as cabal. Never did I refer to Nathan XYZ at all. And he said he couldn't count the number of times that I did it. So he can't count, and he didn't watch the tapes, and he waited 24 hours to bring up hate speech. And then he says that he would want to know if somebody thought he was doing something inadvertently that was hate speech, like as if he's better than me. And the only reason why he thinks he's better than me is because he has unconscious bias towards women. So my point is that you got to beat these people at their own game, okay? No, Dan. No. No, you don't get to. You don't get to accuse me of hate speech, Dan. Because that's what the Smugsy Show is all about. You're not going to cancel me, Dan. You're not going to intimidate me, call into question my show and my beliefs about why the people of Camp Betty should vote no in support of refugee housing. It's not going to work. Fuck cancel culture. You know, the only hashtag that's second to fuck cancel culture on the show is fuck Putin. And I think number 3 now is fuck faux wokeness. So you heard it here. And that's it for this week's show. I hope you'll subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at SmugsyGirl. And until next time, take care.